And we are live. Welcome along, everybody, to this live stream with Amrit Kummer, one of the co-founders of Zilliqa. How are you doing today, Amrit?
I'm still alive, given everything that's happening all around the world. I think it's great to be alive and build things.
That's a good way to start. Yeah, being alive, it's helpful. All right.
And hello to everyone who are listening and watching.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who's listening and watching. If you have questions, by the way, you can pop them in the question box and they should come through to us here. I have one of my guys also on standby watching the stream to see if we have any issues with the questions being patched through. He'll just manually do it. So yeah, please do send in your questions as you think of them. And I guess just to open things up, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to becoming a co-founder of Zilliqa?
Yeah, so my journey started as, I come from an academic background. So I used to do scientific research around computer science, security, and privacy back in 2013 until 16. And so my area of expertise was mostly on understanding what happens when you download a certain software system on your computer, and then what sort of security and privacy impact it has over you and your system. So for example, when you download an antivirus, it may scan all the files that you have on your machine, and that file may have sensitive content. And the antivirus software may send that data or information back to the service provider or the vendor. And that could have privacy implications. So I was interested in that bit. And then by the time I'd finished my PhD, which was around 2016, blockchains were becoming popular from an academic angle. So people were interested in sort of understanding what are the scientific problems that blockchains still have and how to solve them. So at that point, privacy was an interesting aspect of Bitcoin in particular. So they were, I think the first few papers on Bitcoin were around privacy, mainly because Bitcoin was a public blockchain and people could see everything that was happening on the blockchain. So it was a huge privacy concerns for privacy researchers. So I started to look into blockchains from a privacy angle as well. So back then it was 2017. In 2016, early 2017, Monero was becoming popular. So and people were excited about Dash was there, Zcash was just getting launched, Monero was there. So privacy was becoming a concern, and people were looking into privacy preserving or enhancing protocols like Monero. But so my idea was to look into Monero and see if what sort of privacy you actually get in practice when you use it. So I spent around 3-4 months on that, and we realized that around 90% of transactions that ever happened on Monero since the birth of Monero were not private at all. So you could actually know who the sender was, who the recipient was, and different things.
Wow.
Obviously, Monero has improved since then, so I'm not following the project that much, but I'm pretty sure that things have improved since we did our research. But yeah, by the time I finished my Monero work, my advisor, who was in Singapore back then, and still now, by the way, he was working on scalability of blockchain protocols. So he had seen, we had seen ICOs happen, we had seen CryptoKitties happen. And very easily and very quickly, we realized that it was very difficult to run a sensible, real-world application on top of blockchains because the underlying platform simply doesn't have the capacity to take the load. So he was working on a way to scale blockchains, and the idea was called sharding, which is something that now many blockchains like even Ethereum 2.0 is pursuing. So he had published a paper on sharding long time back. So it was early 2015-16 with the CEO of Cuban network named Loy Lu. And then he was looking into sort of commercializing this idea, this paper, and that eventually became Zilliqa. So that was kind of my journey from system security researcher to Monero and blockchains, and then into one of the co-founders of Zilliqa together with 7 other folks who were there back then.
Very good. Excellent. And how much of that early learning is something that's still applied in Zilliqa today? Because I know, when I think about Zilliqa, I think about, and maybe it's a side effect of 2020 and the whole DeFi summer, etc. But I would always kind of put Zilliqa and DeFi as sort of bedmates, maybe because of the speed issue, which is, like you say, has always been has always been there. I mean, in 2017, we were talking about Ethereum being too slow. So for things like CryptoKitties. So, like, I suppose, how do you see Zilliqa fitting into DeFi and the role of, your project in the DeFi space?
Right. So obviously, even before DeFi, if you step back a little bit, you would realize that there are all sorts of tokens launching everywhere. Many of those tokens, which are often called utility tokens, they often lack utility. Even if they have utility, people don't use those tokens for utility. But if there was one token that people were using it and had any tangible and measurable sort of usage, was stablecoins, right? So we can, like and hate as much as we want USDT and USDC because they are backed by fiat or not backed by fiat. The fact still remains that a lot of people actually use them. And one of the basic use cases for these stablecoins was that they could allows you to come out of the volatility of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Zilliqa, for example. And I would say that the whole journey basically started, and whole DeFi narrative started from the fact that you had an asset that was really used for financial products and services. So after that, obviously, we saw many other things came up. For example, Uniswap and DEXs and lending protocol, non-fiat backed stable coins like MakerDAO and much of others. It clearly showed that if there was any sort of meaningful impact or meaningful traction that any project got in the blockchain space, it was around DeFi. Again, you could argue that it was probably driven by incentives. If there were no incentives, maybe things would have been different. But even if you look at some of the protocols that well launched, were actually being used, like Uniswap, Compound, they didn't have tokens from the start, right? So people were using it even when there were no tokens at all. So even when there was incentive was there in terms of trading fees. A part of the trading fees used to go to the LPs, but extra tokens on top didn't exist. And yet there was quite a bit of demand, and Uniswap had seen product market fit of some sort. So obviously, given all of this, we certainly believe that DeFi has a role to play and will have a role to play in the coming days and years. So our role has always been but the problem that I see in the DeFi space is it's still restricted to, let's say, crypto native elite of some sort. And by elite, I don't mean people who are rich or very smart. People who have deep knowledge of what's going on in the space. Imagine a normal user who, decides to download, let's say, an HSBC app or a Facebook app or any app from App Store. You don't go and read documentations and developer manuals and watch videos on YouTube to know how to use some of those applications. Why do we have to, read documentations to use Uniswap? Why do I have to learn things like impermanent loss? Why do you have to learn what a CDP is? Collateral debt positions, and that has really created a barrier to a point where if you look at many of the applications that are even on Ethereum today, they don't have many users. So there are 140 million Ethereum addresses and Ethereum token holders, but around 1% of that, even less than that, actually use any of the DeFi products, let alone other categories of debt that already exist. So there's a huge room for people to chip in and bring the regular folks, token holders. I'm not talking about people who are outside of crypto, but first you have to even bring people who are already in crypto to use some of these applications. So our goal has always been to change that, and at different levels. One is obviously in terms of education. So you have to educate people into using some of these products. You have to reduce the barrier by making some of the UI and UX experience much easier. And then a lot about it's human touch. People often ask questions around Twitter and Reddit and Telegram. We always believe in, and we as a team believe in helping them out, not personally. So you come out and say, okay, tell me what problems you're facing, and we will help you out and take you through the journey of using a DeFi product. So I do believe that not just Zilliqa, I think many other protocols today have a role to play in how DeFi NFTs will get implemented and adopted by the mass, because right now less than 1% of people, token holders, actually use any of these applications. So that's where I think where our role is and our focus is.
Nice. Yeah, because you're right, and that's the 1% of the people who are already, have a toe in the crypto water. You're not even talking about the people, the average Joes. Like almost all of my friends are still, I think, a handful of them have some Bitcoin, but that's it. Like they're too afraid of the knowledge gap that they have to get from where they are right now to, to playing around with it to the same degree, say I would, or a lot of the people that you just mentioned, the token holder people. So
It's much easier today.
Yeah.
It's much easier today to hold
Oh yeah.
than to do anything with those assets. And this is a shame
Sure.
because the whole point of bringing those assets was to add utility. And if you don't make that easier, what's the point of you only want holders who do nothing, who contribute nothing to your system and protocol. That's a shame and a pity.
Yeah, they contribute not selling to reduce your token price.
Yeah, but you want them to get more, right?
No, I know. Of course you do. Yeah, and and I think if you look back to 2017 versus even today, 3.5, 4 years ago, the improvement or narrowing, let's say, of that technology, that technology gap that exists there, where it's just unfathomably difficult to figure out what the hell it is you're supposed to do, and then. I would say that's gotten smaller. I think probably the amount of scams is probably the same or worse. Actually, I think statistically it's worse, probably from a sophistication perspective as well. So there's still a fear, there's a fear element of it that will hopefully get ironed out by, as you say, applications that are just so usable that you don't need to read documentation. You just know what it is that you're supposed to do. And I think any project in the crypto space at the moment who's developing based on a utility token, well, it should have utility. So hopefully you're right on that, and hopefully that's what we'll see in the next 3 years, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I really
speaking of,
there's so many tokens out there. Holders are good, but you want people to use them. So many people are launching utility tokens that don't drive any utility, or people don't extract utility. Even if they drive utility or have utility, people don't use it for that. Same for governance tokens. There are many governance tokens out there, which, I mean, if you look at many of the protocols that have governance tokens, and if you look at how many people actually go and vote for some of these systems, it's very difficult. People don't do it. The other reason is the whole space is so speculative that a normal user holds at least 5 or 7, in many cases at least 15 tokens. A 15 token, a user that holds 15 tokens, it's not reasonable to ask the user to get involved deeply in each of these protocols at some level. So there's also a role to play from a developer's perspective to engage more some of these token holders into actual turning them into users.
Yeah, right. Very good. And is that something that you have plans at Zilliqa to try and do?
No, we are definitely trying to do. And to give you some numbers, I think I was quite surprised. Again, many of these were not, I won't say they were active measures or proactive measures, but when we launched our Uniswap-like DEX, mid-October, around that time, we didn't have many tokens, to be honest. We had very few tokens back then. So I was I was kind of surprised to see the kind of adoption that we saw, because after a month, around 2 months, I would say, we started to see a lot of people using Zilswap. It's the DEX, and we tried to measure how many people are actually using it. Either in terms of providing liquidity or in terms of trading it, trading assets on top of that DEX. And surprisingly, the number of traders on that platform was around 1,000 per day. And just to give you things in perspective, if you compare that with all the DEXs out there on Ethereum, like Uniswap, Synthetics, and Loopring, and a bunch of others, the number of users was right next to Uniswap, which meant that many of the popular Ethereum-based DEXs didn't have the same user base that Zilswap had. And the reason was, I noticed that there were 2 reasons to it. One was many of the people who were actually in the Zilliqa community, they had never used Uniswap. So it was the first time they were actually interacting with an AMM-based DEX, which was interesting. It kind of gives you a sense that one person that I was talking about is actually there across all communities, not just Ethereum, but they're spread over. Which means that if you are a blockchain platform, you'd notice that there are a lot of people in your community who have never used any of the dApps on Ethereum. So we were able to convert those users, non-Uniswap users, into actual ZilSwap users. And the second thing was we were able to sort of connect with them in a much better way. So it was very difficult for people to go and reach out to Uniswap community and ask some stupid questions or simple questions. It was very difficult for them. They felt as if they didn't belong there. And that I think in our community that changed. People were open to answering simple questions for newbies, people who were completely unfamiliar of how AMM worked, and that really changed. So I would say that a lot, even though of course there's a role to play from your developer's perspective to make things easier for people to use, but there's also a role for the community to play. And that I really saw in the Zilliqa community, certainly. So I would credit them to make sure that for what we saw in terms of metrics and numbers through ZilSwap and other DeFi activities that happen on Zilliqa.
It's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, well, look, I mean, community is what it's all about. If you can activate your community so that they like you say, they're willing to go deep with you and really kind of support the project more in a just in a feedback way can be really, really helpful. Do you want to talk about NFTs at all? NFTs are such a hot topic. Oh. Is there anything you want to say? I know you guys did some deal with a bunch of footballers or something like that. Or
yeah, it did. So I would say the first venture into NFTs from our side was into unstoppable domains. So unstoppable domains are domain name systems backed by blockchains. So for example, instead of having let's say 0x1b as your account address, you could replace them by, let's say, neil.zil, and you can send money to neil.zil. And there's a backend contract that sits on Zilliqa blockchain that basically does the name resolution. So it will translate neil.zil to your actual account address. So in a way, it's something that you can own. It's something that belongs to you. So in a way, it becomes an NFT. So that was our first venture into NFTs. Unstoppable domains became very popular, and now you can use them as domain names for your websites as well. And to a point where we decided to fund projects that would build marketplaces for us. So the first marketplace that went live that supported people, provided a marketplace for people to trade those .zil domains was Mintable. So it's a generic marketplace where you can mint and trade any NFT of that you want, for example, video, music, or images, and .zil domains. To a point where they became again very popular. They recently got funding from Mark Cuban, so they were in the news lately. And so after that, we were looking into NFT space, of course. Sorry. Mark Cuban,
you broke up a little bit. I don't know if it was on the stream or on mine. But did you say Mark Cuban invested in Matic or?
No, in Mintable. He also invested in Matic.
Oh yeah,
but he also
Mintable.
Which is the marketplace that
I'm familiar with Mintable.
Okay.
It's a very interesting marketplace. Yeah.
So they have a marketplace on Zilliqa as well. So they have one on Ethereum, one on Zilliqa. So that was kind of our first venture into NFTs, and then obviously we saw a lot of NFT hype in the Ethereum space, and that kind of gave us a sense that there's a demand in the NFT marketplace today. So what we did was we partnered with a company called Polaris, which is based in Portugal, and the idea was to bring some of the very exclusive and unique NFTs for football fans. So we commissioned several players. Well-known 10 football players, Diogo Jota, some of the Renato Sanchez, and a bunch of folks from Portuguese team and Colombian team, and they shot videos especially for their fans. So this was very commissioned, especially for this NFT marketplace. So with that, we launched a marketplace called Zilstars, where you can go and buy some of these exclusive products built by the celebrities and by the footballers for their fans. Some of them even have a sort of physical utility as well. So some lucky people would be able to get signed jerseys and stuff like that. It became quite popular. Within a matter of, I would say, 3-4 days, we were able to do around a volume of around $1.2 to $1.3 million on that platform. So again, a lot of things are planned, but yeah, that's just a start where we are going with.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's funny how I've noticed that your guys are on Crypto.com as well, and they seem to do that a lot with. Yeah, they seem to try and get celebrities to somehow tie in, and I mean it's good for marketing, I guess, if you can have access to those people.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, right, given the COVID situation, many of the fans want to see their celebrities and their it could be sports
Yeah.
celebrities or films and whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
on the other hand, because many of these movies are even these events are becoming online, people don't go and visit in physically. A lot of interaction and a lot of marketing happens online these days. And in a way, you are
Yeah.
looking for a way for these celebrities to engage more with their fans, because fans want to interact with the celebrities as much as they can. They are even willing to pay to, let's say, vote on certain things like whether you should wear white boots or black shoes,
Yes.
and people and fans are willing to pay to vote for these things. So they would
Yeah,
like to
it's
be a
crazy.
part of, yeah, they like to be a part of decision making
Right.
and part of their life, celebrities' lives. And this also gives an opportunity for celebrities to monetize themselves directly. So they don't have to go and talk to an agency to manage them or find a way to monetize some of their own talent, but they could actually find portals like this, decentralized mechanisms to directly engage with their fans. So that's very powerful. So you could apply this with YouTubers as well. So we have a project called X Academy where they're trying to engage YouTubers directly to their fans. And you could imagine, a budding
Nice.
YouTuber who is just starting. You could invest in that YouTuber, and you'd be able to reap benefits once this YouTuber becomes popular at some point. So there are
Yeah.
many sort of
Wow.
variants of getting fans and celebrities to engage with their followers, and that's NFT enables them. In NFTs and social tokens enable them in general to monetize that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing that's happening. I think, especially for some of the creative arts that that would have up until now have been really struggled to make, especially when I think about artists and really famous artists. Part of the deal there for a very long time was the idea that you had to die before you became famous and potentially wealthy, like your estate got your wealth. But now you see guys, and they're, it's nice to be able to see them more, I guess, effectively monetize what they're doing, their art. Not that it should be about money, I guess, in a lot of senses, but just that at least they can do it. So that's fantastic that crypto is helping democratize the sort of that aspect of things as well. In terms of multi-chain and chain agnosticism and projects existing across multiple places. I know you have a bridge at the moment with Ethereum. Do you want to tell us what's coming there?
Yeah, sure.
Or what stage that's at? We're here.
Yeah, so we are obviously interoperability is becoming an interesting phenomenon, mainly because people are realizing, or at least developer teams are realizing, that there are communities that are spread out. You have a community sitting on Ethereum, you have a community sitting on Zilliqa, you have a community sitting on, I don't know, Algorand, you have a community sitting on Near. So there are all these smaller communities sitting across the the blockchain value chain, and you want to somehow cater to that audience in some way. And there's a value to it, right? Because you can't say that everyone is sitting on Ethereum, everyone is using Ethereum, because there are many people right now. I could show to you that there are around 70,000 people staking on Zilliqa. So there is this community that might not be actively using, let's say, I don't know, Algorand, for example, or may not be using Ethereum, for example. So there is a value from a developer perspective to capture the audience. So if it's like let's say Facebook or an application developer, regular traditional application developer. Why do you want to build an application that gets downloaded on Android as well as on iPhone? Why not just go and build on iPhone? No, you can't do that, because you know that there are users who are using Android. So you want to build and cater to that audience. So we are seeing that happen right now, where people and developers are realizing that there are communities even in silos, but there are communities sitting across the different chains, and you want to be able to build products, at least give access to those products to those people. So from that angle, we started to develop a bridge as well between Zilliqa and Ethereum. So we are using a middleware called Poly Network, where the idea is we connect with Poly Network, and Poly Network already connects with, let's say, Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum, Cosmos, and a bunch of others. So we basically transitively connect to all these chains indirectly. So we are using that as a middleware, and the idea is to be able to to start with some of the assets that are valuable on Zilliqa and being valuable on Ethereum and being used on Ethereum, like, let's say, USDT, ETC, ETH, BTC, and you could bring them over from those chains to Zilliqa, and then you could use those assets in different things. So for example, we are building a MakerDAO, like one of our committee members is building a MakerDAO-like system called Pillar Protocol, which will basically have collateral, and then when you put collateral, you'll be able to mint stable coins out of it. So once we have more assets, it becomes much more robust. So you give people more choices to put their collateral. And BTC, ETH, and let's say USDT are much more liquid collateral.
Yeah.
So in terms of status, we are literally today we are planning to push a blog post maybe sometime after this AMA. We'll have blog post will go live, where the idea is we're going to launch a testnet version very soon, and we'll have some incentives for the mainnet users. So if you are interested if you hold ETH, BTC, and USDT, you will have some incentives to move those assets from the native chains to Zilliqa, and then get some of the yields that you can get. So yeah, so blog post is going to come out today at some time.
All right, we'll have to share that, and also I'll be interested to have a read of that myself. So just before we open up the floor to some Twitter questions, and if any of you guys that are listening on the live stream, and I know there are some people because KRNS says that we both have super young voices compared to our faces, which I think, I don't know, I'm going to take that as a compliment, even though I'm pretty sure it's an insult. Anyways, yeah, but just before we get to that, what would you say you're most excited about for the future of Zilliqa?
I would say that there are a lot of projects that we are working on internally in-house, and I've also seen some projects coming out of the community that basically take DeFi. I mean, they are basically hybrid of fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens. So it's a mix of, in a way, DeFi NFTs. And that's kind of what I'm really excited about. But there are also projects around DeFi. For example, there's a project I mentioned about earlier, Pillar Protocol, where it brings non-fiat backed stable coin for people to use. It will also allow people to basically take leverage position on chain and be able to utilize that for trading benefits. In the end, I would say that a lot of projects are being planned in the NFT space purely as well. So we are looking into some projects that we will be able to announce hopefully soon. But yeah, so we have, in terms of some quick summary, we have Ethereum Zilliqa bridge that is coming up very soon. That will also bring some USD-backed, fiat stablecoins as well. So, for example, you'll be able to wrap USDT on Ethereum and bring them over to Zilliqa. We are planning to have a stablecoin Pillar Protocol, MakerDAO-like stablecoin. We are looking into building a marketplace, NFT, a better marketplace as well. So with some fancy features like auctions and bonding curve and stuff like that. And then I'm excited about every other day I'm seeing a new project coming out from the community ecosystem. So it's good to see. It's good to see those projects and see how they develop.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. I think. Do you guys do much to support that in terms of, do you have a specific community just for people who would be interested in developing on Zilliqa or developing solutions and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we have all sorts of support groups that you can tap into. For example, the first support group is called Zilliqas. It's a team of people from the community who help you in terms of development, so in terms of marketing and different things. So there's this immediate group which is closest to the community. So they literally sit and chat in the community groups. Then there's a group of developers that are, that have developed in the past projects on Zilliqa or are developing or are running their protocols already. So you could reach out to them if you need help in terms of, if you don't know how to connect or use certain libraries and SDKs, you could reach out to them. If you're looking for funding, you have a couple of choices. So, for example, if you have an idea and you don't know where to start in terms of funding, you could reach out to Zilliqa, which runs incubation programs as well. So you can start with idea.
Cool.
They'll take you through the entire incubation journey, and in the end, they could also even put substantial capital for you to get started. Then there are funding in
Awesome.
proposals that you can get directly from the community. So there's something called Zilliqa initial launch offering, Zilswap initial launch offering, where if you have a product, you can basically reach out to the community and get funding from them. So there are different ways in which you could get help from the community, and in terms of funding, tech support, marketing support, and others. So feel free to reach out to the community, and then they'll definitely be able to help you out in many different ways.
All right, cool. That sounds like you've a really well established kind of ecosystem for helping projects get off the ground, which is awesome. I think that's a really important thing to have, basically, if you want to try and grow your ecosystem, which is so that's great. Okay, I'm going to ask some questions randomly from those that were submitted through Twitter. We actually got quite a lot of questions through Twitter. If I ask something and it's too technical or something like that, just let me know.
I can answer technical questions.
I think, yeah, I'm sure you can. Yeah, okay. So let's try. So I'm Risky Whiskey says or asks, what happens if a group of validators commit an invalid block into a shards ledger, and it's the last block of the epoch, making the epoch E+1 have an invalid block as that epoch's genesis block?
No, so what happens is, let's say, for example, within a certain epoch, by the way, we are using BFT consensus protocol. So it's not like proof of work where one guy decides and comes and says, this is the final block and you have to accept it or reject it. In our case, the entire network has to agree upon whether that transaction or that block is valid or not. If everyone agrees, which means that and the whole system works on the assumptions that there are at least 2/3 of nodes which are honest. So under that assumption, any block that comes out and gets proposed and gets agreed upon the ledger, it has to be valid. In case, let's say, for some reason the network is completely off, in the sense that you have, let's say, more than 1/3 of nodes which become malicious, then all they can do is they can stall the network. They cannot process invalid transactions. So there's a safety mechanism built in. So in case the network gets taken over completely by, let's say, completely by malicious nodes, then of course you are screwed, because otherwise the network has basically broken down. But as long as the malicious nodes are no more than, let's say, 2/3, then you're fine, and the network can still process. Your block will get rejected.
Okay. You still there? Oh, you are. I think I lost you for a second again. Okay, that question doesn't make any sense. Let's ask this one.
What does he think about the migration of block asset to Solana? Okay. Well, I guess I'd heard and saw from the community that they were looking for an auction mechanism to auction their NFTs, and they didn't have time to build that auction mechanism, from scratch. I think that's kind of why they decided to sort of move their auction mechanism on Solana. What I've seen from them is that they are planning to come back once the minting and auctions is over. So that's so again, people would have to build, and sometimes they don't have time, and so they find simpler versions, a simpler way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So Cap Cosmos on Twitter
I really
asks,
the feature, by the way, of showing questions straight here.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get it to go again. Let's see. Show. There you go.
Okay, this is about environmental standards in Bitcoin mining, and I'm asking the same question about Zilliqa. Is Zilliqa an environment-friendly coin? Yeah, so we have done quite a bit. to make sure that the impact, the carbon footprint of Zilliqa stays as low as possible. So here are the things that we've done. One is, even though we rely on proof of work, we don't use proof of work in the same way as you use proof of work in Bitcoin or Ethereum. So for example, in Bitcoin and Ethereum, you use proof of work for every single block. So when you mine a block, it has to go through proof of work. In Zilliqa, we use proof of work very, in a frugal manner. By this, I mean that we use proof of work only to build the network. And once you have the network, you don't use proof of work to validate every single block. So which means that you use proof of work, roughly speaking, every 2 hours or so. And after that, you use a classical BFT consensus protocol, which is all about communications and voting. So there's no proof of work involved. There's no hardware involved. I mean, no GPU-like hardware involved. So that reduces the requirement and reliance on proof of work. The second thing that you can do is, because we don't use proof of work every single second or every single minute, you can go and mine let's say Ethereum, and then come all the time, and you come back when mining on Zilliqa is needed, and then go back mining Ethereum. So you can actually mine 2 chains in parallel. So that also saves. So basically, with the cost of mining Ethereum, or with the carbon footprint of mining Ethereum, you're basically mining Zilliqa as well. So that also helps in terms of reducing carbon footprint.
Cool. All right. So it's Arnaud, I guess, asks, what is your ultimate dream for Zilliqa project-wise? That was the question as well.
Okay, I would like Zilliqa to be the chain for people to use and leverage. So I would like them to see as if Zilliqa is one of the biggest chains, or one of the chains that is most used. I know that, and I've mentioned this earlier, that I would there are a lot of token holders, but there are very few users, and I believe that we can get there only if we can convert. And this is generally for the entire blockchain space. We have to strive hard and really hard to convert token holders into users, and I think that's the way to do it, and that's how I think we can realize that dream and goal of being the chain where people would go and use blockchain assets and blockchain applications.
Cool. All right. The next question is from, I kind of spelled strange, but Crypto Queen asks, can you explain in detail the Scala language of Zilliqa blockchain? What are the advantages of that language compared to languages like JavaScript, Rust, C++, etc.?
Yeah. So when we're looking at when we're building Zilliqa, of course, one problem that we want to solve was scalability, but we also realized that there were issues around smart contract safety. So we had seen incidents like DAO happen where, I don't know, $60 million worth of, back then, now I think should be valued more, $60 million worth of Ether was stolen. Then we saw parity incident happen where I think hundreds or $200 million worth of assets were frozen. And then every other day we are seeing hacks happen in the Ethereum and DeFi ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So we, from that angle, we realized that we had to do something about it. You can't just wait and hope that developers will learn from their mistakes. So we decided to design a new smart contract language that we call Scala, which is designed with safety in mind. So it sacrificed a little bit on expressiveness for safety, because we felt that the more expressive the language is, the more mistakes you can make, or because the more, it's like liberty. If you give a lot of liberty to people, they make silly mistakes. But if you restrict them, then the chances that they will make mistakes is slightly lower. So with Scala, the design, we had one key focus in mind, which was reduce hacks, reduce issues around safety. At the same time, we also wanted to make sure that this language allows people, or allow developers, to give formal guarantees about the safety of contracts. So you could, for example, write a contract and say, go and use it, and here's a mathematical proof that this contract is safe to use. And by safety, I mean it could be, for example, that this contract will not leak funds to any unintended user. No one will be able to steal money from that contract, stuff like that. So you could define properties, and you could give mathematical guarantees that properties are sound for this contract. If you compare, let's say, Scala with Solidity, Solidity goes on the other end. It tries to make the language very expressive, while sacrificing on the safety aspects, and that's why you see all the hacks and issues around smart contracts in the DeFi ecosystem. The third aspect, about someone, the person asked about compare with C++ and other languages. Even though there are a lot of Solidity developers out there, very recently, I think around 3-4 months ago, the Solidity developer team did a survey, and they asked them, the Solidity developers, and what's the most hated aspect of Solidity? What's the thing that you hate the most? And many developers came out and said that the closeness of language to JavaScript was one of the most hated aspects. Even though that was some people call it the feature because they like the fact that if you're building web applications, you do that in JavaScript, and given that Solidity is close to JavaScript, it helps them out in that sense. But it's also kind of one of the hated aspects, and that's kind of why we also took a departure from that way of programming, the design aspect. So our language is very similar to OCaml. For those who are familiar with Haskell and OCaml, and many other programming languages now, I think in Algorand and Cardano and a bunch of other folks are now designing languages that are restricted in nature. Viper, which is a language that is being developed with the support of the Ethereum Foundation, is also a language which is restricted in some sense. It's not open and very generous, but it restricts users and developers. Therefore, it allows people to write safe contracts. So that's kind of what my answer would be to the question that was asked.
All right, that's a pretty good answer, pretty thorough. All right, from Crypto Wallet 12 on Twitter, he's asking, he says that your current staking is phenomenal. What's the future of Zil staking?
Thank you that you find it phenomenal. No, I think people really liked it, and the fact that it came up with GSAL. So for those who don't know, when we were looking at staking, we were also at that point, governance was becoming very popular. So we tried to think of a way in which we could allow governance to give possibility for community to decide on certain parameters. So at that time, we launched a token called GSAL, and we felt that how do you actually going to distribute this token to people? What we did was we attached with staking. So for example, when you stake your ZILs, and when you take your staking rewards out, which is by the way around 14% right now, so you earn 14% on your staking rewards. And alongside with that, so if for every ZIL that you earn, you are given 0.001 GSAL. So for every 1,000 ZIL, you get 1 GSAL. So it's a very fair way of some may call it fair way of distributing tokens, because there's no one holding any of these tokens, so it's all being distributed to the community who are actively using the blockchain. So if you are using staking, if you are involved, and if you are sending transactions, you will get GSAL. Now, as a next step, we are looking into sort of combining staking yield with some of the other DeFi protocols. For example, I mentioned about Pillar Protocol, which is a sort of a stable coin issuer, where you put ZILs as collateral, mint stable coins, and then use that stable coins for leverage. And then you have to pay a certain interest rate when you return when you want to get your collateral back. One idea that we had was, can we combine the staking yield with Pillar Protocol? So staking gives you returns. Why not take that return and ask it and basically use it to pay off your interest rate that you have to pay to Pillar Protocol? So it's something that is often called self-paying loan, where you take a loan, but it gets self-paid over time. This is something that we are looking into from a staking perspective. Again, we have not started working on this, but it's an idea that we are planning to work on hopefully soon.
Cool. That sounds cool, yeah. All right. So I think let's look at some questions here that are on the actual stream. Okay, Prabhu has a question, but it's in two parts. So I'm going to read it out. Sharding in Ethereum 2.0 phase 1 is expected to increase network throughput by roughly 100 times. Zilliqa already has a reported throughput that is 250 times greater than the throughput of Ethereum 1. What further plans to increase sharding?
Yeah, so we were the first ones, by the way, to implement sharding in practice on a mainnet. So we have definitely expertise in. We know what works and what doesn't work, and we have learned it the hard way. And you have to do it the hard way because you can't just go and rely on someone else's experience and expertise and say, okay, you have done that research and we can leverage on that. You can't do that because no one has implemented sharding in the first place. So we really
tell
have
that
to
to 70% of the DeFi projects that are out there copying and pasting smart contract code. But anyways, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, in the base technology, we can't do that. I mean, application level, it's much easier, right? In the base way, it's very difficult. For example, you can't just go and copy, let's say, optimistic rollups, for example. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started that, but then we realized that there are different ways in which you could take sharding to sharding 2.0. One thing that Ethereum is doing is at the network level. So they're trying to organize ways in which you could have contracts sitting in one shard, talk to contracts sitting in another shard. So different complex mechanisms in which you could sort of do cross-chain transaction, cross-shard transactions. We felt that it's too complicated, and why not explore something at the language level? So a lot of people were doing at the system and network level. So we recently published a paper which got published in one of the best conferences in programming languages, where the idea is to understand whether certain contracts are more shardable than other contracts. And when you have a contract that's sharding friendly, you could basically take transactions that go to that contract and then send them into different shards in parallel, and they can be processed in parallel. So basically, the idea is to be able to leverage what's called, some people call it community properties of certain contracts, and use that to help improve sharding and throughput. So that's something that we have published. We have done an academic research, and now we are looking into implementing that into practice on Zilliqa.
Cool. Is sharding kind of going to be I suppose, do you feel like there's much room for transaction speed increases from where you're at, or with sharding, like through optimization and things like that? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, right now I would say that we're not sharding smart contract in the most optimized way we could. And with this paper, and if we start implementing this paper, then we'll be able to do that. So definitely, I expect transaction throughput to increase if we start implementing this.
All right, cool. Because our next question is from, actually, I have no idea how to pronounce that. I think it's a Vietnamese name, and I won't do him any favors or her any favors. So the question is, people are always worried about the transaction speed because they worry about the transaction that it's going to fail. How fast and secure is Zilliqa gaming? If the number of user spikes, will transactions on Zilliqa get congested?
No, so literally, to answer the question, literally, I think around in February this year, someone spammed the entire network for roughly 8 hours with around 1 million transactions. I think north of 1 million transactions, and nothing happened. To give you a sense of what 1 million transaction is, this is the volume that Ethereum does on a regular basis. And again, that's when the Ethereum network is congested. So when a lot of people are using this, roughly speaking, Ethereum network receives around 1.3 to 1.4 million transactions. So that gives you a sense that even if you today, literally tomorrow, we are not there quite yet in terms of number of transactions that people are sending in practice. But if we get there, let's say tomorrow, the network won't have any issues about dealing with it. Again, this is just a perspective, but yeah, it can go even higher. But I'm just saying that even if you take the entire Ethereum transaction volume today and transport it today to Zilliqa, there won't be an issue in terms of throughput.
So like it won't even break a sweat.
Yes.
Won't even break a sweat. Okay. All right, cool. You're saying 1 million transactions on a per daily basis is what Ethereum is doing?
Currently doing around that mark on a daily basis, yes. Around 1.3 million, around that mark, yes.
Cool. Do you have any idea where the limits are? Where?
Okay, I would say
how many transactions would it take?
Yes, so many platforms are claiming they can do 100 million or whatnot. We can't do that. I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think that's scientific. So I would say that we did some tests back then. In the early days of Zilliqa, we saw that you could process around 10,000 transactions without any hedge, without any issues. But yeah, again, that was in the early stages. A lot of things have happened. So that might have slowed down a little bit.
It's hard to know.
But yes, it's a little bit hard to know. But
you don't have to fix a problem yet anyway, sounds like so.
Yeah, but I don't think in the next 5 years or 10 years we would have any issues around throughput in the near future for sure.
All right, let's go for this one.
How can Zilliqa play an important role in Web 3.0 industry 4.0 revolution? Why doesn't Zilliqa have other Telegram channels for different group languages, as this could help to spread the words about Pro? So, well, I think all of us who are doing and contributing and building, different products and protocols, they have a role to play in Web 3.0 and whatever comes next after this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of room. I mentioned about this. We are still scratching just a tiny percentage of the user base that's in crypto, space, and not to talk about the community that's outside of crypto. So people who are still using banks, people who are still using mortgage providers, and so on. So there's a role to play for every single user, every single player in this industry, and I think Zilliqa has that role as well. To answer your last question on communities, so we definitely have a long list of communities in different languages: Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Russian, Chinese. So there are Telegram groups for many of these languages. If you go to our official group, you would see the list in one of the pinned messages.
Brilliant. All right. Yeah, I think that we get accused of that on a regular basis as well, where, oh, why don't you support such and such a language? I mean, there's a lot of languages out there, in fairness. So, if you're the first person that's coming to the community from that space with an active interest in speaking in your own language rather than English, then yeah.
And this is a general thing with, people don't realize this, but if you start a startup, regular startup, right? You start with a small city. You sell your products in a small town or city. You go to your country, and it takes ages for you to go from sort of your city to your country. Here in the blockchain space, you start a product and a startup. On day zero, it becomes global. So that's what happened for many startups in the blockchain space, where they have to scale very fast. They have to cater to a wider audience very
fast.
Which is something that people don't realize, but it's a good thing, but it also comes with its own challenges.
It's a really crazy world that we exist in. Like to think that fintech, which traditionally would be so kind of stuffy and suits and ties and everything, is, well, when you combine that with the bleeding edge of technology, you get memes and Pepe the Frog and like you say, instant global requirements, like community teams that can speak multiple languages, 24-hour, 7-day-a-week support, so that when people come in giving out about whatever it is that they're giving out about, that there's someone there to help them. So it's a really, really crazy place, crypto, in a good way. I mean that in a good way. Okay, I think we've about a few minutes left. You want to take some more questions, or is there anything else you want to say on anything before we sort of wrap up? Or I can give you a few more questions if you want.
Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. This Jean-Pierre Hernandez asks, how is Zilliqa development going? Can you describe in detail current efforts, market expansion plans, expected applications when they become commercially available? Well, we've touched on a good few of things in there, I would say, but just maybe if there's anything that comes to mind from the question that we haven't talked about already, by all means.
Yeah, so I would say that the immediate project that we're working on that will go live next would be Ethereum Zilliqa Bridge. That's the immediate thing. After that, I really would like to build, or at least fund, if someone is interested, marketplaces, so NFT marketplaces, for example. There are people who are building, and again, I would like to fund them. People who are building or interested in building synthetic assets. But again, I'm not interested in synthetic assets like synthetic USDs. I don't think there's a demand for that market, in the crypto world. But something exotic, something that you would want to buy that doesn't exist on the blockchain space. Again, it could be very stocks. It could be something else, but
Tesla.
It could be Tesla.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want
shark fin soup. I don't know.
Yeah, you want this. So we are looking into sort of building, or at least funding projects that are interested in building synthetic assets that people want to use and buy. and I'm not talking about synthetic USDs and synthetic stable coins, but something different, something that people, again, private equities is a good way, but it's you have to be very careful, when you build something like that, because otherwise you're literally going into, your regulator is going to keep an eye on you. So you have to be careful.
That's a very nice way of putting it, I would say. I imagine it's fraught with challenges at a regulation level for sure. All right. Something that I think is potentially interesting is this question from Friendly Spider-Man about GSAL and voting and liquidity. You touched on GSAL before, but maybe you could talk about, I guess, voting and that side of things.
So so of course, the GSAL is the governance token. For those who don't know, you can use it for voting. You can put that on ZilSwap, on the liquidity pool, and then on Swap rewards. Pillar protocol I mentioned, it's interesting because unlike MakerDAO, where you have an MKR token for governance, Pillar protocol is going to use GSAL for governance. So people, and that's kind of the benefit of GSAL, because it's a token, it's a governance token that sits at the protocol layer, and you can use it, lift it up, and you can use it at any of the application layer protocols.
Oh,
so
cool.
that's the benefit of GSAL. So instead of having governance token for every single applications like Uni and Compound and whatnot, you could have if your goal is purely governance, you could use GSAL across the entire protocol infrastructure.
Right.
So in terms of Pillar, so there are also mechanism in which Pillar team is working on, where you would be able to use GSAL as, in a way, in a pool that will be something like insurance pool, and people who contribute to that insurance pool would be able to earn benefits. There are incentive mechanisms being built for GSAL token holders for Pillar as well. And I've heard, and literally just before this call, I was having a call with a community member, and is looking into building something where GSAL token holders would earn more benefits from a protocol that they're building. So there are many other benefits that may come up once some of these protocols go live.
This is the thing. It's really interesting when something is brand new, and it's in that sort of such early stage where basically you're kind of learning as you're going. I guess you're evolving as you're learning and going. All right. This is a very serious question next from Cody.
You scared me.
What can we do about Elon Musk?
Well, I don't think you can do anything about him. You just have to take it lightly.
Shake your head.
Yeah, and I think everyone, entire community has to take him. I think he has contributed quite a bit to the broader, space, industrial space, and I think a lot of people know what he wants to do with the non-blockchain world. But I don't think we should take everyone seriously for every single tweet that people make. You understand your value. You understand where you invested in. You understand the value that you believe in. Go with what you believe in, rather than someone else trying to. And not everyone is an expert in everything. So go with what you believe in.
But I think in his case as well, like people get so worked up over tweeting and stuff. Well, I mean, I guess if you get liquidated,
he has an influence, so that's kind of what triggers people.
But he can't. Look, the man is basically a genius. He's not. I don't think he's even thinking about things at that level. He's doing his thing, and trying to enjoy trolling on Twitter, I guess.
Yeah, he's having fun. We should have fun as well. So.
Yeah, exactly. Have it all. All right. Here's a question about COVID-19.
As you know, COVID-19 has a large impact in the crypto market. So how can your company maintain its project and also the team that are working hard during this pandemic? Well, if you like it or not, pandemic has been a blessing in some, or not a blessing, but it hasn't impacted negatively that much.
Not on the development side, not on the project side, on the speculation side of
everything. Everything has been going quite well. Yeah, people don't come to offices anymore. But the question is, do you want them? People have gotten used to working from home that they don't care that much. In fact, if you think about it, at least for me, I work more when I from home. When I work from office, I work less, because now when you're working from home, the difference between work and your regular life is so much mashed up that you can't distinguish between them. So one time you're working and one time you're eating, you're doing same thing at the same time, two things at the same time. So it's I won't say that. Yeah, I know that it has been very difficult for other industries, hospitality, restaurants, and I know many shops in my area that have completely shut down because they can't do business anymore.
Yeah.
So it has been really hard on the non-crypto world, but I won't say it has been hard that much on the crypto world. People have continued to enjoy working from home. People always had distributed teams. I think there are very few teams out there which are solely centralized in one place. So I don't think that has mattered that much to the crypto world.
Yeah, that's exactly, and it's anecdotal evidence to support your point, but yeah, it's the exact same for me when I talk to friends, non-crypto friends. It's all like, oh god, like work, and it's like we're on our knees, etc. And then the crypto friends are all like, it's just Tuesday, it's Wednesday, it's not business as usual. Distributed teams working from home. I think that's kind of the way it's been since the start. So yeah. All right. Is there any partnerships coming soon from Joseph?
Well, there are always things to announce, but unfortunately, we don't make announcements.
Nothing to say today.
We don't make announcements. But yeah, you will hear from us. We believe in updating the community as quickly and as early as possible. So you would know all the partnerships that or anything beyond partnerships. People are building. There's a lot of activity happening in the Zilliqa community today. So if you just go on Twitter and if you search certain hashtags, you would see that a lot of people are building every other day. There's something new being built, and that really excites me and drives me forward. And I'm sure that many community members appreciate what other community members are building for them. So yeah, so just stay tuned, and you'll follow us on Twitter. You'd hear every single thing that comes out of Zilliqa from there.
All right. Well, in that case, there are a lot of questions still in the live stream, but I think we've taken up probably enough of your time at this point. Just one last question about wallets. This one here, look, I'll just put it up on the screen. Zilliqa mainnet will be able to be added to some wallets like MetaMask Trust Wallet. Zilliqa mainnet will be added to some wallets. All right. I think he's asking, or she is asking, will it be added to MetaMask and Trust Wallet?
So MetaMask, unfortunately, doesn't support Zilliqa-like token, but Trust Wallet does. So already does. So you could actually go and transfer. You can create a wallet on Trust Wallet. I mean, you can create a wallet. You can create a Zilliqa address on Trust Wallet, and then you'd be able to transfer and send Zil tokens around using Trust Wallet. So yes, it's possible already.
Awesome. Yeah, Trust Wallet's actually great. It's very impressed with that as a wallet application. Okay. Well, in that case, Amrit, thanks a million for joining us. Is there any final parting words you want to share with people, or?
Well, I would say that keep an eye out for the announcement that's going to come today, hopefully sometime.
Great. About the bridge.
And yeah, about the bridge, some incentives that we're planning through them. So and yeah, follow us on Twitter. You'd see a lot of activity happening on the Zilliqa community, and yeah, get involved.
Yeah, well, we will publish a Medium article just wrapping up this with the link to the recording of the stream, and we'll also put all the links that you guys want us to put in the bottom. So no problem there. Everybody will be able to check that out on the UpBots Medium anytime they want after the fact.
Sure.
So listen, thanks a million for your time and for coming and chatting with us today. It's been really fun.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was lovely being here, and thank you very much for the community for the questions. It was great being here and answering those questions.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.